a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
Welcome, everybody, to the Road to the National series here on the Sports Cards Live YouTube channel. We are counting down to the 2025 National in Chicago, and I'm joined today by passionate collector and co-founder of Card Ladder, Chris McGill. Chris, welcome to the Road to the National series. I always love seeing you at the National. How is your preparation coming along so far for 2025?
Coming along great. Love to see you at the National too. I've seen you in so many different capacities at the National. I've seen you with like a booth set up. And whenever you walk the floor, it's partially I think because you're 6'8" or whatever you are, but you can't miss you, and there's always like a group flocking to you to either recognize you from Sports Cards Live or just because you've been in this industry for so long and you've made such an impression on so many shows, but it's always great to see you. And anytime I want to feel important or have people to talk to, I'll just stand next to you and they come.
Sure. Well, besides getting to see me in a few weeks here, Chris, what are you most looking forward to at the National this year?
Obviously the cards. I'll give a two-part answer. The first part is the cards. Every year at the National, there are cards there that I simply never would expect to see, and cards that sometimes I'll be able to add them to my collection. Sometimes I can't, but just being able to see cards that are unicorns is I get an energy boost for the month after the National. Just having been there and seeing all the great cards and collectors that are there, and that bleeds into part two, which is I love seeing all the people of this hobby. I love seeing my coworkers who also work in this industry, and I love seeing all the different collectors who take this as sort of a retreat from their professional lives. From sometimes their families come with, sometimes it's a retreat from family life too, and it's just we all sort of share this moment, this week or so on Hobby Island, where we're completely detached from all other responsibilities and obligations and duties, which we will return to and we do take seriously, but this is our escape for a little while. So I love being in that environment. Everybody has that in common. We all have cards in common. We all have a love of sports in common. It's a great place to be.
It's our hobby Mecca. It's like you said, it's the community, but it always comes back to the cards. You've been to a few Nationals before, Chris. Actually, let me ask you this right now. How many have you been to? What year was your first National?
My first National was 2021. And it was, that was a big, post early innings of pandemic hysteria in the hobby. So that was a big festive National. Unfortunately I never got to go to the Nationals before that. I came back to the hobby in 2016, and at that time I was in Southern California and I was a law student, and so every summer I was either externing or doing something related to advancing my potential future career in law, which actually never even came to pass, but I always missed it. I always had things going on and I was never able to make it. And so 2021 was my first, and man, it blew me away. It was overwhelming, to say the least.
When you went in 2021, were you just there as yourself, or were you also there as Card Ladder? What year did Card Ladder first start setting up a booth?
Yep, it was in conjunction with Card Ladder. We were set up with a modest booth, actually, like among the dealers. And Card Ladder, it's funny. Today is June 23rd. That I hope it's okay if I mention that, but that we're recording 6/23, and today is the 5-year anniversary of the soft launch of Card Ladder, where we launched the product but invite only. And so, yeah, I mean, we launched in summer of 2020, 5 years to the day. And then a year later, we were set up at a very modest booth at the 2021 National. So, yeah, that was Card Ladder's first as well as mine.
Well, happy anniversary to Card Ladder. I'm honored and proud to say that I was one of those early invites. And got to contribute a little bit to some of the early data. So that's amazing. Like 5-year anniversary. This isn't 4 or 7. This is 5. It's a big one. Congratulations. You guys are still running strong. A lot has happened. And you'll be set up as card ladder again this year at the National, of course. But I want to stick to the personal side, the Chris McGill collector side, before we dive more into the card ladder side. First of all, I want to know, looking back upon your national experiences, card-wise, is there a pickup? Is there one card that you acquired at the National, one that you maybe weren't expecting to find, that stands out above all else for you in your national experiences?
Yeah, there's a lot, but the one that comes to mind immediately when you say that is last year, about midway through the show, somebody walked over to the card ladder booth, and I wasn't there, but they, Josh and Christina were, and they said, "Hey, I think we have a card that Chris would really like." And it was actually, it was somebody who knew the person who owned it and just said, "You know what? I can't believe you have this card. Let me walk over and see if maybe Chris wants to make an offer on it." And the card was the 2017 Select Concourse Black 1/1 Christian McCaffrey. And so Christian McCaffrey is a big PC player of mine. I'm a big fan of Select as a product. Concourse is the first appearing card for a player in their rookie year in Select. So this is a card that I was always wondering where it was. And it was at the show. Just I would have had no idea. The guy who owned it had pulled it in a break 5-ish years ago, and just kept it in the sealed one touch from the breaker, and never even he just happened to have it with him. He just brought it with to the National. He figured, hey, this is a cool card, I'll bring it with. Card had never seen the light of day, had never seen a marketplace, it never been made available. Just a card that I was always wondering, where is this card? McCaffrey's first Select Black 1/1 from his rookie year. I that's just such a big card for his catalog. And then lo and behold, it makes an appearance at the show. Somebody who happens to know that I collect McCaffrey says, "Hey, let me see if you're interested." I walked over, I made a strong offer on the spot. We did a deal. And then I rushed over to PSA to get it graded, which is one of my favorite parts of the National, is being able to grade with companies on site. Just like buy a card at the show and then being able to walk it over to one of the grading companies and get it graded. I love that, especially if they turn it around by the end of the show. That's just one of the biggest rushes, because even if I don't find a card at the show, I can always bring a few raw cards, drop them off at the beginning of the show, pick them up at the end, and I feel like I accomplished something. And, you kind of get the rush of like, what's the grade going to be and stuff. So that's the one that jumps to mind, Jeremy, is that McCaffrey.
That's amazing that a card you were waiting to pop up literally shows up right in front of you. That happened to me a couple of years ago at the National too. I was walking the floor. Someone walked up to me and said, "Hey, I have a card you might be interested in." Right away, I think to myself, probably not. Probably. And then he shows me what he's got. I'm like, actually, okay, you sure do. It was a 1/1 dual shield from the Cup of Timu Solani and Paul Correa.
Oh, it's right up your alley.
Yeah, I mean, had to pay through the nose for it, but it hadn't seen a secondary market in 20 years, just under 20 years. And so we made it happen. Always fun. You never know what you're going to find. Now, this year coming up in a few weeks, we'll be there, Chris.
Yep.
Do you have a target card in mind? Is there something you're looking for that you think will be there, you hope will be there?
Yeah, and I might as well avail myself of this platform to announce it. I'm looking for two in particular, or rather two types, I should say. The first that I'm looking for, I know was at the National in Cleveland last year. I know it was there because somebody sent me a picture after the fact. The 2015 Select Black 1/1 Nikola Jokic. He only has one card in Select. It only has one Black 1/1. It's graded BGS 9.5. It's one of the most beautiful cards imaginable to my eye. And man, I would just love to be able to make a very strong offer on that card. So I'm really hoping that surfaces. And then the other one, Jeremy, is a type of card. I've recently taken an interest in the 1998-99 Upper Deck Michael Jordan cards, and particularly the ones that come from the base set. And so I'm looking to find as many of those that I can, particularly the gold 1/1 parallels. So I'll be looking for those too. And, I don't expect to find either, honestly, just as a matter of odds and the fact that I won't be able to see all the booths. But those are my goals, is hopefully to maybe make some progress on one of those two fronts.
Now, expanding upon goals, when you go to the national now, and this will be your fifth one or so, are you going with a list of to-dos where there are things that you want to make? Because I know for me, Chris, I go to the national 5-day show. I've got some things I want to do. All of a sudden Sunday comes. I'm like, I don't think I did a few of these things, and I want to make sure that I do them. How do you manage? First of all, do you have a list of to-dos, and how do you manage your time to make sure that you're able to accomplish them?
Well, that's such a balancing act, because on the one hand, we certainly want to accomplish at least some of the things that we set out to accomplish, whether it's professional meetings or finding certain cards or making sure we talk to certain people that we haven't seen. But on the other hand, we don't want to be so committed to a schedule, a prepared schedule, that we might miss out on moments of spontaneity that can lead to great memories and great opportunities. So it's really a balancing act. I definitely am one who leans more into just, I'm going to go wherever the show experience takes me. And, I certainly will make it an effort to walk the show as much as I can, to see as many dealer booths as I can, to try and track down some of the cards, that I was mentioning. That will certainly be a priority. It will also be a priority. We have to take meetings with some folks too, which that'll happen. But other than that, I really tend more to just sort of let the show unfold and sort of see which direction events just kind of happen to take me in. But I really like that on a different episode of this, Adam 27 guy, he pointed out that like his method is he gets on a plane to come to the national, and that's his time to make a list of the people he wants to see, of the things he wants to do. I thought that was a great nugget that sort of like, we're busy and we're not really fully thinking about the national, but man, once you get on that plane or whatever, like, yeah, you're there. You have to take that flight, and that's a great time to sort of lay out some plans. So, but I'm not a huge planner, quite honestly. I'm just not a huge planner. I'm more so, I have a general idea of what I want to accomplish, but I like to keep my mind and my options open.
It's similar to how I approach the card angle. I don't go with a checklist of cards I want to find, although there are a few targets I have, but I'm very open to whatever catches my eye and maybe expanding my interests. I love learning new things, and the National is a great venue to not only discover new cards, but hold them in hand and look at them. And it's three-dimensional examination of a card is so much better than two-dimensional on a screen. So I love that. Now, you talked about how you approach it. Let me ask you this: as far as people who maybe have never been to the National before, or maybe only once or twice, but someone who's never been before, why would you advise somebody who is a sports card enthusiast to go to the National if they've never been before? And then part two, someone who's more hobby curious, as I've been calling it. Why would you advise someone who's hobby curious to go to the National and use that as a place to broaden their experience and knowledge of the hobby?
Yeah, great question. And my angle to this question kind of goes like this. To me, I'm in the hobby. I think most of us are in the hobby because we have fun, because it's a great pastime, because it's a great recreational experience, because it's something that provides us some sort of psychological stimulation, relief, satisfaction. And for me, and in my personal experience, going to the bigger card shows, and especially going to the National, it just supercharges my energy level, my enthusiasm, my enjoyment of the hobby experience. The hobby experience, I love it because it makes my day-to-day life better. And then the National experience makes my hobby experience better, which in turn makes my day-to-day life experience better. And it pays dividends even after the show is over. So something that I remember after every National, after every bigger show that I attend, is that I just have so much energy and enthusiasm for the hobby after it. And it lingers, it keeps me inspired and motivated, for weeks after the show. I'm running off of the high of being at the show. So there's an energy, a sense of just enhancing my hobby experience by being at that show. I think some of the things that do it are just seeing all the different collectors and all the different ways that they collect. And like, I love listening to people talk about how they collect and why they collect what they do, partially because I learn and I can gain new insights, but also because like while they're talking about that, I'm thinking about how I do it too. Like we have it in common. It's sort of like like sort of watching or like playing somebody one-on-one in a basketball game or something. I don't know why that metaphor comes to mind, but it's like I get to see how they do what they're doing, and maybe I can learn a thing or two, but then I also get to do what I do, and I get to show them a thing or two about how I approach things as well. So I take so much energy away from it. I get so energized by being around that environment. And it's also, several times, Jeremy, I have to just pinch myself to realize what a different and enlarged and growing hobby this is. And, I had like a little epiphany moment the other day. I was looking for some Michael Jordan collector groups to join on Facebook because I'm on this new chase. And I because of my search, I stumbled upon a Jordan Love, who's a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, a Jordan Love Facebook collector group that had over 4,000 members. I thought to myself, Jordan Love has over 4,000 collectors. I remember a time in the not so distant past when a Michael Jordan Facebook group getting to 1,000 members was a milestone. I remember a time when, hobby content was, you had your choice of like 5 podcasts, period. And now today, I mean, just it's such a burgeoning, growing, energized scene, and the National just embodies that. It just embodies how big and how far this hobby has come and where it's going.
I was gonna follow this up by asking if you had any tips for a first-time attendee, and I think if I can glean it out of what you just said, it is to be open to discussions with other collectors, talk to vendors, and discover as many approaches to the hobby as you can, and look and search out community. I think it's a wonderful way. I always loved setting up at card shows. I set up at the National for several years in the 20 teens, and something I would ask everybody who came by my booth is, how do you approach the hobby? Because they come, they look at they're looking in your showcases. They may not want to say anything to you. They may be nervous. They may just not feel like talking. But I'm a social person. I want to talk to people. So that's how I would break the ice. I would say, hey, what's in your backpack, or what's in that box in your hand? And they say, oh, just a few pickups. Oh, can I see them? And then we start talking, and I say, so what? It's not only what do you collect, but how do you approach the hobby? Because the hobby is more than just the cards you're buying at the card shows. It's how big of a component of your overall life is it? Sports Cards Live, one of the part of our opening song is Sports Cards is a Lifestyle. It's one of the mottos of the show and my content. And I truly believe that sports cards can be your lifestyle if you choose for it to be. Now, one of the other things that has really evolved at the National during the National Week over the past few years are the trade nights. The trade nights. Originally, going back to the late 2010s, you had a trade night that was organized by Ryan Johnson, Card Collector 2. People would go to that. It started out in a small room. 40 people showed up. It ends up being thousands of people trying to get in. And it was a wonderful event that kind of spawned what is now where the National Committee itself has sort of sanctioned these events and brought them into the National Conference Center premises. And they're doing one every night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I guess Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. There's a trade night. How, in your estimation, Chris, how important are the trade nights, these extracurricular activities? I mean, back in the day, not only Card Collector 2's trade night, but they would organically spawn up at all the hotel lobbies in the surrounding areas at all. Regular guests of those hotels maybe didn't like it. They're walking over people and their cards all over the floors. But in any event, how important is it that the National itself has sort of become involved in these trade nights, and the trade nights themselves? How important are they for the community?
So important. So important. So I love the fact that there are officially sanctioned, and then there are still, you can't extinguish the impromptu, no matter how much we wanted to. Every hotel within a walking distance, within even something approaching a walking distance to that show, is going to have impromptu trade nights probably every night. And but the thing that I love about them, whether it is the impromptu or the officially sanctioned, is that there are levels of dealer. There is the full-fledged dealer, I think, who is more professionalized, or at least capable to make the outlay to set up at the show if they're lucky enough to get a table. It's very competitive to get a table. But then there's another tier of dealer who goes to the show, who walks the show floor, but maybe doesn't necessarily have a table. And so the trade nights are like where they can sort of set up, so to speak. And, they lay out, maybe they find a corner on the floor, or they find a little table, and just, it's all of these makeshift dealer booths. And it's just amazing. It just shows, some combination of entrepreneurship and love of collecting and a love of trading and buying and selling. And I'm using the word dealer kind of loosely here. It's a trade night. It's people who want to trade. It's people who want to see all different types of cards and different types of collections. And it certainly gives an opportunity to people who maybe can't, totally afford the time or the money or the resources to set up in a full-fledged sense at the show, or they just don't want to because they prefer to be mobile and walk around. But then the trade night, they can get more stationary. They can actually kind of set up and sort of lay out their makeshift booth. I love that. The energy of that is just amazing. And I love the impromptu ones as well, because there's just something, there's something really cool about the fact that, like, we just can't stop doing cards. We just can't stop pulling our PC box out of our backpack and laying out the cards, whether it's 1:00 in the morning at the hotel, or we're waiting to bust into the show at the line when the show opens every morning. We just can't stop. We just want to be doing cards nonstop. So I do feel for the hotels, because it's a nuisance. It's actually obnoxious. Sometimes the hotels will just say you have to rent a room. You can't just occupy the lobby. But that, I wouldn't want to be fighting that battle, because I just don't think you're ever going to win that battle. I think collectors are just gonna occupy. They're just gonna occupy the spaces while we're there.
One of the things I think that these trade nights bring to the show is more people and more liquidity, more transactions, because a lot of these people who aren't set up in the show itself, they can do some deals. Maybe they're trading, maybe they're selling, and now they're putting money in their pocket that they can go spend on the show floor the next day. And it also, like I think you were alluding to, it'll allow for people to maybe help cover the cost of the travel to the city that the National's in this year, of course, Chicago. So the fact that the National Committee has taken it upon themselves to sanction these events, really facilitate them and organize them, I think it's really smart that they do that, and they recognize that if they're not a part of it, it's going to be happening anyway. So they may as well help enhance the experience, and I think that they've done a great job doing that. Now, Nationals coming up here, as you mentioned, we are recording this on June 23rd. National starts the end of July, and the last year's National was in Cleveland. So we've had about 11 months that have gone by. Is that enough time? Or I'd like you to review that time, Chris, in your mind, and tell me how you think this year's National will be different from last year's National, and take any approach to this that you'd like.
Well, congestion in and out of the facility will be improved without a doubt, because that was Cleveland, that facility, and honestly the city, it's just not quite big enough to support the number of collectors that poured in. And it's a great problem to have. It's a great problem to have, but there are just too many of us. And so this facility, this area, all the walking distance hotels and all the conveniences that are close by too, that just sort of let us all set up shop in this area for a period of time. That's something that's really nice about Rosemont and about the facility, is that it can handle. I mean, I worry that we may be outgrowing that facility too eventually as a hobby, but I don't know that the facilities get much bigger. But that's one of the great parts about the show being in Rosemont. And it's just Chicago's a little more central. It's a little more convenient. It's a place that I think more people are able to travel, especially if they're coming with family. There's more other things to do if they're sort of splitting the trip into a national and some sort of family trip or vacation. So I just think Chicago is convenient on a number of levels. I think there's a reason why it tends to turn out incredible attendance numbers. And for me, it's incredibly convenient as well, because I'm a 45-minute drive from it now where I live. So I'm honestly, it doesn't get much better than Chicago for me.
And so next year we'll also be in Chicago. This year, 2025 is year one of 3 consecutive years in Chicago. I love that. It's so easy to get to. Everything you just mentioned is very favorable from my perspective. But then next year, 2026, we'll be back in Chicago again, year 2 of 3 consecutive. Do you have any thoughts already of what the National in 2026 might look like compared to the National in 2025? Although we haven't had it yet, I know it's sort of unfair, but maybe other things going on in the hobby or the industry that could affect the way 2026 is versus 2025?
Yeah, this industry is growing. This hobby is growing. I was just taking a quick glance at the industry tab on Card Ladder, and we are in a 3-month period of in excess of $250 million being spent per month on the secondary market for the marketplaces that we track for trading cards and sealed wax. And it's almost all trading cards. It's very little sealed wax. Part of that inflation is Pokemon, which is, increased quite a bit. I think there's probably going to be a pretty big Pokemon and TCG presence at this national, maybe bigger than ever before, just because of how rapidly expanding that space is and how much overlap there is with sports card collectors and Pokemon collectors. But the sports card space is increasing too. So, I've seen empirically that the volume spent on cards, it's never been higher. And so, once the numbers for June come in, presumably we're going to be comfortably over $1 billion spent in the last 4 months on cards, just on these secondary marketplaces and just for singles and just online. So, I think that 2025 is going to be big. I think might be bigger than some are expecting. I think that there might be more money transacting than even is expected. I think this could be a very there could be a lot of wheeling and dealing going down at this show. And then I think 2026 is going to be even larger. I can't help but forecast that as these licenses transfer, particularly the licenses for the NBA and the NFL, and as Fanatics completes its ascent to being the manufacturing powerhouse behind making the exclusive trading card license for MLB, NBA, and NFL. And as they continue to ramp up marketing efforts and so on and so forth, there as an unavoidable consequence of that, this industry and the number of collectors and the number of people working in it, the number of people trying to start businesses in it, and so on and so forth, it's just going to grow. So I think 2025 is going to be a very large event, but I think the amount of growth we're going to see between summer 2025 and summer 2026, and the amount of newcomers that's going to happen during that 12-month period, and I think we're just going to see a national in 2026 that's probably going to be the biggest, from a number of perspectives, from the activations perspective, from the attendees perspective, from the amount of money in the room perspective. I just think that national is going to be mind-boggling.
Seems like every year we say that this year's national is going to be the biggest one ever, and I have a feeling after 2026 we'll feel the same way about 2027. Now, you work with Card Ladder. You're a co-founder of Card Ladder. You are tracking pricing trends. So when you say that I can't help but forecast growth, you're not basing that on your gut feel alone. You're basing that on probably your gut feel as a collector, but also as the person who is, kind of responsible for curating pricing data. And I know that you're such a data-driven guy, Chris, that you're analyzing these things all the time. So without being too redundant, I wanted to ask, and I've asked all the guests on the road to the national, if they had any hot takes on the hobby overall. Now, I'd like you to think about price trends when you say this, because you said that you're forecasting growth. My understanding is that we're seeing more and more the overall aggregate amount of secondary sales is very, very strong, $250 million a month, as you mentioned. That might be based on prices that are not at their peak, but more and more transactions, which may indicate more and more people are involved in the hobby than before, almost than ever before. With that in mind, do you have any sort of hot takes on, say, pricing trends in the hobby? We may not be as high as we've been before on an overall average, but where do you see that going? And take this in any other direction you'd like to, please.
Yeah, I'm just not good at the hot takes. I wish I was, but it's just I live more in the world of, just like you said, like analyzing what has happened. That's kind of where I occupy. I guess just look, I'm not sure if this is the right direction for this question. I guess my hot take that's going to issue a bit of caution or a bit of tempering expectations, even though I just laid out a very bullish case. But my hot take might be that it might take Fanatics and its brands a while before they really figure out how to get this NFL and NBA licenses rolling. And we might have a turbulent time when it comes to new products. And that's going to be tricky because a lot of hobby activity surrounds new products, breaking, going into the hobby shop to buy it, so on and so forth. And I think maybe, especially for the duration of the first few months, years of the transition, and this is not unprecedented either. Like when Panini took over, there was a very turbulent start to that transfer as well. I think maybe during that transfer, there's going to be, sort of a reclamation project for previous eras, and certainly not just Panini, which is the most temporally proximate era. But I think there will be, sort of this sudden nostalgia and like remembrance for what Panini contributed, but also for other eras, for the exquisite Topps Chrome 2000s era, for the 90s Fleer Skybox era, for the 80s and the so-called junk wax era, and then obviously the quote unquote vintage and the pre-war eras. I just think that during that time is possibly going to foment a return to appreciating cards from the previous eras, and it's going to be sort of a crystallizing period where the history and how we as a group form a consensus about how we think about these different eras. I think it's actually going to provide us some time and space to do that while Fanatics nails its brands and figures out its promotional strategies and how it wants to design these products and promote them and release them and distribute them. And, should these go direct to consumer on a larger basis, or should we return more to, a very heavy card shop model? And, what role do distributors play? Like there's so much that they have to figure out on a business level and on a product design level that I think it's going to provide a little period of time to remember and develop not necessarily appreciations, but approaches to collecting these other eras, which I think is going to be good from a hobby history point of view.
And I think the National is a place where a lot of these ideas and trends can be launched, as it's a gathering of collectors from all over the world, whether it's from, the US and Canada, Asia, all the different types of collectors come together. There are conversations happening. They're showing each other cards, and maybe they're focusing on, like you said, the Panini era is about to come to an end. And you are predicting that in the future, the Panini era will be nostalgic. I think there's no doubt that it will be. And it reminds me of a cliche that is, you don't realize it, but we are in the good old days. We are in the good old days of Panini right now, and we have been for 10 years. We may not realize it. We may take it for granted, but 10, 15, 20 years from now, I think a lot of people will look back fondly on the 20 teens and the Panini era, just like we now look back extremely fondly on the 90s era, the 90s insert era, Fleer, Skybox, Upper Deck, all these things. So, and looking back on the 2000 era with Exquisite and the Cup and the various brands when Upper Deck had licenses. So it's we are always in the good old days. We just don't realize it. And I think that maybe puts a bow on what you said. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it's a great perspective to have too. Just like, like there's always things to rightfully complain about, and there's always things that can be done better, and and so on and so forth. But the other side of that coin is that that we're in the good old days. Like I think that's from The Office, right? Andy Bernard maybe or Dwight or somebody says that we why didn't anybody tell me that we're in the good old days right now? So exactly. It's good. It's a good perspective.
It can help bring you back to the present and just enjoy today, right? This hobby, we always set goals. We try to complete sets. We have our own customized checklist of cards we want, PSA set registry, goals, all sorts of things. But it's the journey. It's going to the National, buying a card that might be card number 2 of 50 that you need. But once you hit 50, you might look back and say, oh, buying card number 2 at the National in 2025. Some great memories that are associated with that. Speaking of making great memories at the National, one of the things that I love about the card ladder booth, which I know is booth 2323. How can you forget it when House of Chris HOJ, which stands for House of Jordans, happens to get booth 2323, Michael Jordan's jersey number twice. That's a coincidence, right?
Of course, yeah. That we just lucked into that. Yeah, we launch on June 23rd. We have booth 23. It just happens.
That's unbelievable. What an unbelievable coincidence. I think it's very apropos and will help so many people know where the card ladder booth is. One of the things that I like about the card ladder booth is that for me, it's a great place to say, the Nationals, it's a huge space. And I want to meet up with people throughout the show every day. And it's like, hey, where do you want to meet? Well, to me, it's like, let's just meet at the card ladder booth. I'll see you there at 2:00 on Thursday. It's the card ladder booth is a place where people gather. They can rest, they can sit down. You often have phone chargers there. There's some candy if you need a bit of a sugar bump going to help get you through the rest of the day. I know I've taken advantage of that, but I just think it's a lot of fun. For Card Ladder itself, do you kind of look at your presence at the National as a community building setup?
100%. So glad you laid it out that way. And I want to make this a public service announcement of sorts that, first of all, the Card Ladder booth this year is 4 times bigger than it has been in previous years. We now have a 20 by 20 booth in the corporate section. So, before, like, it got crowded over there sometimes. There's only so many chairs, and like a lot of people love there are very few places at the National to take a load off. And that's always been a bit of an issue at shows, but it's a function of the fact that there's so many people there, and like, there's only so much space. But that's something that we really like. Part of the reason why we grew the booth was so that we can just house more people there. So that, like you said, there will be phone chargers there. If your phone needs a charge, there will be some sort of refreshment or goodies there. And the booth will be big enough that we can fit more people there. And just, one of the things, especially people coming to the National by themselves, if you don't know anybody, or, it's your first show or whatever, it is a great booth to come to, because you will run into people there who, Jeremy, just exactly as you said, the best icebreaker possible at a card show is just, let's see your cards, and then would you like to see mine? That's such a great icebreaker. And sometimes you have nothing in common with the person, and that's the result. You just go your separate ways, and it was nice to meet, but you might find a collector friend for life through that process. So the Card Ladder booth is a great place to just gather and bring your PC box, or if you just got a card back from grading, if you just picked up a card and you're excited about it and you want to tell people about it, everybody at that booth is going to love to hear about it. And it's just a place for anybody to gather, whether you're meeting with a group, whether you're by yourself and you just, you want somebody to hang out with for a while, you want to hang out there all day. Look, Christina will put you to work if you have nothing to do, so like, come by. We would absolutely love to have people come by and just spend time at the booth. It's a collector centric place. We're not selling boxes of cards or anything. We don't have supplies to sell. We don't have singles to sell. Like, the booth is there just to provide a hub for people. You don't need to be a Card Ladder subscriber. You don't, just be a collector. That's it. If you're a collector, come on by, pull up a chair, get a charge on your phone, meet some other people, and just, that's the point of that booth. It's community. It's exactly what you said.
Well, I was going to ask you if there were any other goals for Card Ladder, the entity, to accomplish at the National. Are there? I mean, you just said the purpose of the booth is to build community, be a hub, gathering. You don't have to be a Card Ladder subscriber, but are you going to the National on behalf of Card Ladder with any other goals for yourself and the team?
Yeah, I mean, there's interesting business things always happen. We somebody comes over to our booth from a new marketplace or something, or who knows? That's just, there's always interesting things that happen, meetings that happen, people that come by with an insight or an idea. One of the things we're very receptive to is customer feedback on all levels, whether there's like some little tiny thing that's irritating you about the app, or it's like some big idea that you have to say, like, hey, as a collector, if you guys did this, it would really, really help me. This is one of the best venues for us to take in that type of feedback all at once. So we love to hear from users. We love to hear from people who have ideas, collectors who have ideas, new businesses are sprouting up, existing businesses that maybe see a new way that we can collaborate or help each other, or whatever the case may be. So, that's the other side. That's the more business professional side of the coin of our setup there is just, opportunities, just opportunities on every level, on a technological level, on a helping collectors level, on a, who knows, keep an open mind. Just, and you never know what type of new opportunities are going to come up at a show.
I wanted to ask you too, like, how important is the National to the Card Ladder brand? And I feel like I can almost answer that for you. And I will say a couple of things and leave it, of course, open-ended to you as well. But what I like about what you just said, and what I think is important, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think is important for the Card Ladder brand is the fact that you are there, you are present at the National, and you are open to opportunities and experiences that just sort of come to the booth. You will also be walking the floor. Maybe you'll see a company that you can somehow collaborate with as well. Is that why the National is among the most important events, if not the most important event of the year for Card Ladder?
100%. Yeah. Card Ladder is certainly a collector oriented event. Frankly, that's the part of it that it excites me the most. It's just the hunt for cards and gathering with collectors in general. But it's also an industry event, and it's also an opportunity for new startups and existing businesses to showcase their products, to take in feedback from the community, to form potential partnerships or collaborations. And it's cool, collectors get to experience that too. There might be a startup there that is there primarily to make B2B relationships, but man, if you're a collector and you're a little bored or something, and you see a booth that for a startup and nobody's there, go ask them what they do. It might be really interesting. You might, and almost always the people working on these companies, or people who are working in the space, they usually have really interesting backgrounds. They usually come from something, obviously from something else. And it's so interesting to hear how people got into this space and sort of hear what their ambitions are and where they think the industry is going and where they think card collecting is going and how the product that they're building is going to help or disrupt or modify or influence the direction of card collecting. And some businesses are great ideas and some are terrible ideas. I've had my fair share of terrible ideas for sure. So it's just a place of it's a wild west of sorts. It's just you never know what you're going to see there. It's just there's so many people. There's just so much energy. So yeah, it's the industry side of the National is really cool too. And that's not even to mention what all the manufacturers do, all the different activations, what the grading companies are doing, all the established institutionalized entities that are there that want to gather your attention and give things away or, give opportunities to sneak peeks at new products. And, and just like the wax too, like the amount of sealed product that will be there from all the various retailers and all the way down to smaller hobby shops that set up, like, if you're there's certain boxes, for example, like Christine is more of a sealed box collector than I am, but like the opportunity to get certain products, the opportunity to buy certain boxes there, just it doesn't happen anywhere else. And always ask, like if you walk up to one of the major, like David Adams or something, just like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Like I don't see it out in the display, but do you guys have any here? I mean, just the amount of product that comes to these shows is incredible.
Yeah, the National it's just a wonderful place to be. The community, the opportunities that can present themselves. I love it. I can't wait, Chris. Anything else you'd like to mention before we wrap up? Anything else come to mind? Any other tips for a newcomer, for someone who's hobby curious? Anything else that comes to mind you'd want to mention about your own pursuits, Card Ladder, before we wrap this one up, Chris?
Wear comfortable shoes.
The standard advice: wear comfortable shoes, have a bottle of water, make sure your phone is charged, all of these things. Well, Chris, I want to thank you again for joining me here. This is the 6th of 6 episodes of the Road to the National series here on the Sports Cards Live YouTube channel and podcast. Thank you, Chris, for taking time away from providing your integral pricing data to the hobby and for sharing your thoughts here with us. I really do appreciate it, Chris.
Glad to be a part of it.
All right, you take care. We'll see you soon at the National. And everybody else, thanks for being a part of this Road to the National series here on Sports Cards Live. You never know, we may do a bonus episode or two, But for now, the series has come to an end, and this has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see you all in a few weeks in Chicago. Take care, everybody.